if you have the opportunity, even before a crisis or after a crisis before the next one, to look at your culture and see your workplace culture, whatever you call it, company culture, and see what you can do to make employees more tooled, more ready, and happier to work there.
Welcome back to a whole new episode of Engati CX. I'm your host Kimberly, and today we have an employee experience expert with us on the show. But before I introduce you to our guests, allow me to introduce you to the magic of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual, no-code digital CX platform available across 14 channels with 45,000 solutions created across 187 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as the top platform by Inc.com, Tech World, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 400,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest. Kate Nasser is the speaker and consultant at the People Skill Coach. She delivers keynotes, coaching, workshops, both offline and online, and consults organizations on how to deliver superior customer service through collaboration, engagement, and by leading change. Kate energizes everyone with her inspiration and practical takeaways and activates behavioral change for business success. Welcome to the show, Kate. We're so glad to have you talk to us today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Kimberly.
But before we dive into our interview with Kate, don't forget to subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon to get access to exclusive content coming from thought leaders around the globe. So, Kate, let's dive in straight into our interviews. What are some examples of the opportunities that help optimize employee experience in times of crisis? Do these opportunities impact customer experience as well?
Yes and yes. So let's dive in a little bit. So during crisis times, and of course we've had this COVID crisis that came on and has stayed. It's been a very long duration, very complex, very frightening, and so forth. So I think if we're going to talk about this subject, this was the time to talk about it. So it's a great question. And a lot of companies are asking this of me, and I'm doing lots of interviews. So what I say is this, in terms of how can you help the employees at this point, right? What kind of an employee experience are they going to have when they are negotiating all of this to give great customer experience and still handle their own families and concerns? And I say this, every single action that leaders and managers can take to honor, recognize, and celebrate what the employees are actually delivering, especially what we call the frontline employees, but certainly throughout an organization, whether it's back office, front office, doesn't matter. Everything that you can do to celebrate the hard work and resilience of the employees is going to give them a grounded sense of, wow, these leaders and managers really have our backs. They care about us. And the issue of caring about people is critical, because as customers are dealing with this, whether it's a business customer or a consumer, individual customer, they are bringing to every single customer interaction extra stress, extra worry, extra angst about all of this. And your employees are dealing with that. So now they've become psychologists and parents and all of these extra emotional things that they have to do 100 times over. And then they have to take care of themselves and their families. So now let's extend that to you as leaders and managers. You need to be this bulwark of emotional support so that they can be emotional support to the customers. And thereby, your second question, are those things connected? Yes.
Yes, I completely agree with you, Kate. You could not explain this in a more simpler way. Now, when we talk about crisis, okay, the ability to work remotely was once seen like a sort of luxury, but now it's become like a requirement and has tied employee safety. So do you think this shift has been effective? Do you see organizations adopting remote work as a part of workplace culture?
Well, these are two excellent questions. Let's do one and follow the other there. Certainly, has it been effective? That very much depends on the company. There were companies who were already, they had been doing what used to be called teleworking. There's been lots of different names for it, working from home. And they had been doing it for so long that they already had the technical structure, the cultural adaptation and acceptance of such a model. So they just had to ramp it up for everybody. There were other companies that were able to take some examples from the companies that were doing it well. And because culturally they were adaptive, they were able to swing into action and ramp up pretty quickly. Not as smoothly as the first group I talked about, but they were able to do it. And then there was the other group who had not a clue. They were not technically prepared. And more importantly, the culture of the company was such that it's very siloed. It's rooted and almost trapped in procedures and whose job is it to sign that form, like anybody cares in the middle of a crisis. And so they struggled. So there's a real range of how effective has it been. And then also we have to remember that it's not just the company and the leaders and the managers that are shifting. A lot of people have always dreamed about working from home. Oh, wouldn't it be great to work from home?
Exactly, yes.
Some people were already doing it, right? We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Even call center agents, lots have been, a lot of times over the years, there's been a reduction. You can work from home. We give you your technical setup. And some people adore it. They absolutely love it. Other people realized, oh my gosh, I don't get to talk to my colleagues as much. Where am I going to put my computer? I don't have a quiet space. I'm at my dining room table, but the kitchen is right there, and my kids run in and get, soda out of the refrigerator, and you hear the darn thing slam shut. So there was a lot of struggle with all of this. So effectiveness has been a conglomeration of all those factors. Now, will it become part of the work culture down the road? It already is, because of the severity and the duration of COVID. You can think of other sort of catastrophes, natural catastrophes that happen in time, sometimes an earthquake, a tsunami, a flood, a tornado, where temporarily people will work from other sites, work from home, but it may be a month, or two. It's not the same thing as this. And because of the uncertainty of COVID, the duration, the fear that you never know, you're going to get it, what's going to happen, you're going to spread it, you're not sick, but your kids get sick, your grandmother, all of that. It's already a part of the culture. And there'll be some trends. I think we're going to talk about it later. I looked through your questions in advance. But.
Definitely. So since you spoke about COVID and this forced digital transformation that we have because of this crisis, does it have any effect on the employment and the business culture again? And what are the employee experience trends do you think is going to dominate 2021, since we're nearing to an end of 2020?
Yeah, certainly. Yes, it will dominate 2021. I think this whole concept of working from home was certainly forced, like you said, by this COVID crisis.
Correct.
But it has already had some implications, for example, on gender roles and parenting. There's been several articles written lately about, traditionally, even though women are out working, the studies have shown for years that they still carry more of the home, chores and housework and changing the diapers and, all of that.
Correct. Yes.
And what they're finding now, as these people who research go around, they're finding that men are actually, because there was no other option but to be home, they are doing more of those things. Some men are actually saying, wow, look how much I've missed. Now that surprised me, I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So it has changing those kind of roles, and therefore becomes part of societal culture as well as workplace culture. I think that the whole concept of real estate, now this varies by country and so forth. I'm here in the United States, or based here. I work all over the world. But companies I think are starting to rethink, how many big, expensive office buildings do we really need? Then you have to go to the next step, which is home building and buying homes. Not all homes have us office space or an extra bedroom that nobody's using. And that's been a huge challenge, on these online Zoom meetings, I don't know if you've seen it, but, you think everything's private. And the next thing you know, behind you, goes your kid or your spouse, maybe in their pajamas or something, and you're like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
Right. So it's been a wild trip, but I do think, that the other thing we need to realize is that as much as people dreamed about working from home, and many people do like working from home, some really miss the social interaction. And I think that it has an effect on how companies must look at, are we going to still try to measure people's performance?
Correct.
Based on, are they always working? Because if they're always working, it means they're doing a good job. Well, not necessarily.
Correct.
And also people need social, are they going to realize, okay, we need some kind of a quick digital way for employees to be able to have little chats with each other and see the face, not just the voice. All of this reworking, I think that this is going to be, for the future, definitely a transformational event. I do.
Correct. I completely agree with you. Like you said about how employees are getting bored kind of before now, since it's like a monotonous thing. I think we've been on both sides. There's a time where we enjoyed working at home, and now we all of us are longing to go back to office. That's both the side of the thing.
Yeah.
Do you think the relationship, I think we've gone through this, but then I would like you to just give a little more insights on, is the relationship between employee experience and company culture interdependent? Should employees value both attributes equally, or does just demand equal weightage, or does it have the vice versa?
Well, they are, and not just now during this terrible crisis, but employee experience and culture and customer experience have always been inherently interdependent. And in a crisis situation, it becomes more interdependent because everyone is more stressed out. I worked in the customer service. I was on the technical customer service. My early days, I was a computer techie. But moved into delivering all the tech support and all of that long before I started this business. And we knew how to put aside our own stress when we were on the phone or even face to face with a customer and give great customer service. That was always our goal. And so if you had a bad thing going on in your personal life, once you got to the company and you walked in that door, you sort of had to say, because unlike other jobs where maybe, you could probably shed a few tears sitting at your desk, you close the door, you still do your work. When you're with customers, that's not an option. So, I got very good at it. However, when you have something like this crisis going on, it really stretches even the most professional service worker will tell you that there is a point where, not so sure I can cover it up. So it's inherently interdependent. How can I say this? But more importantly, the interdependence is between the workplace culture workplace could be virtual, or it could be on one, home corporate site. That is the most interdependent, because toxic cultures, toxic leaders, and toxic managers create a bad employee experience. And nowadays, and I've seen it now for more than a few years, even before COVID, the younger generations, I'm a late baby boomer. So I was raised by parents of, World War II. And you suck it up, excuse my language, you go to work, you sacrifice, you do the hard work, you don't think about your needs. That's gone, honey. That doesn't even exist anymore. And the millennials and the Gen Zs, this latest generation, if it's a bad, employee experience, they're out of there.
Correct.
They move on. And so their expectation of work is very integrated into their life. And this happens because of what was going on in society and technology as they were growing up.
Correct.
So they don't think of, I'm going to work now, I have to remember to sacrifice today. What is that?
Correct.
That we were taught that. I remember my parents telling me that. First of all, nobody taught them that. Secondly, technology made their life and their work integrated from the very beginning. So we don't actually create an employee experience. We need to create a great place to work so that the employees can have a great experience. It's how they perceive it, not how we design it. And there's a big difference there. A lot the same with customer experience. We think we're going to design the customer experience. No, we don't. The customer has an experience based on how we design our service offerings and our train our employees to be givers. So interdependence is very much based on create a great place to work so that the employees can experience it in a very positive way. And that doesn't mean that they have to have 5-hour lunches and all these extreme, myths that we have. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with them feeling that their leaders and their managers care about them and have their back and trust them and support them and appreciate them. That's a biggie. And recognize their individual talents. Again, we were taught, what individual talent? They used to say there is no I in team. There's lots of I's in team, trust me. And they don't want to hear there is no I in team, because then they feel faceless and nameless. It's a whole new world. And this happened even before COVID. So COVID made it do it now because of the angst and the stress that they were under.
So it's like literally it's forced. So it kind of like makes it like, you have to get your stuff done no matter what.
Right. Right. Exactly.
What are the pillars of employee experience success? Is there any specific components you would like to name? And how should organizations craft an employee experience strategy around that?
Yes, there are pillars of employee experience, certainly. Believe it or not, the very beginning of it, like the core of it, is respect and dignity. Now, people say, what are you talking about? We want procedures and metrics and all this. I'm like, yeah, breathe, wait a minute. People want to, certainly they want to be treated with respect and with dignity. So something as simple as how you speak to them. And, there's been this horrible distortion of the idea that if you treat somebody with civility, that you're not being honest or that you're not being authentic. What's that? Honest and authentic doesn't mean insulting people, insulting your employees, or being blunt and rude and brutally frank. Being blunt and brutally frank is a privilege that that an employee affords you once you've earned their trust. So the old-fashioned way of leading and managing where you're telling people what to do and this and that. I mean, it just, no, this is not how it is today. And even something as simple as saying, yeah, please, and thank you. And I appreciate that extra effort you put in there. I'm sure the customers appreciate it too. It's a more holistic culture of respect and dignity that creates the basis for a great employee experience. And it also is the root of morale, because I wrote a book called Leading Morale. And above all, morale is about dignity, feeling that you as a human being are treated with dignity and respect. So that's the first one. Purpose. There's a lot of studies out now, and I'm sure your listeners and your readers can find it. They've been done by all prestigious, research organizations, that employees want a purpose. They want to know that their work has a purpose, not just a set of tasks that they do from 9 to 5. And the younger ones very much want purpose. Again, because to them, work and life are integrated. They're not separated by some time clock, And then, excuse me, career development. So no matter what job it is, and it's not just in college-educated white-collar jobs or anything like that, people want to know that their skill set can evolve. And through training and development opportunities, people evolve as they age. They want companies that will offer them opportunities to grow their natural talents, to even learn a brand new skill that they never even thought they could do before. That's very much a part of employee experience. And then, believe it or not, and this goes back to your previous questions about working from home or being on site, a sense of belonging. Have you ever witnessed a leader trying to push somebody out the door? They don't want to fire them because they don't want to be sued. So they kind of minimize them, isolate them, ignore them, all these kinds of passive aggressive behaviors. Well, the flip side is the reason that is so painful for people is because they don't feel like they belong. And so if you want even something as simple as having a welcoming any new employee. I mean, I worked for some wonderful companies, really great Fortune 500 stellar companies. But my welcome was fill out these forms in the human resource department. And so I would get up to the floor where I was going to work, and maybe the boss took me around and said, "This is our new employee." There was no sense of welcome. There was no sense of how to fit in. So, and this can be done virtually or in one space, it doesn't matter. So welcoming new employees, mentoring them, giving team members time to do that, as opposed to saying, "Why are you talking to her? You should be over there sitting down doing your work." Do you see what I'm saying? So all of these things are the structure, the pillars of employee experience, because nobody likes to feel alone. I'm not saying that there are introverts and extroverts, but nobody wants to feel isolated and nobody wants to feel incompetent. And when you start working at a new company, even if you've got 10 years of experience, you don't know this company, you don't know their systems, you don't know their culture, So those things are important. And then certainly leaders and managers who serve the employees that they are leading. And you've got to empower your employees, but don't abandon them. I've seen leaders say, "Oh, empowerment doesn't work." I empowered them to go do it, and they didn't get it done. And they kept coming back and asking me questions. And I said, "Well, why do you think that means empowerment doesn't work?" Empowerment means to share power. For that, people have to be trained. They have to have skills. And they have to know that they can still come to you for insight and not feel guilty and not feel like, "Oh, this person, this leader is going to think I'm failing because I'm asking for their guidance." So real empowerment, sharing the power, encouraging them. Empowerment is not abandonment. That's what I try to get across to leaders. It's a matter of sharing power, letting them know that you're not going to micromanage them, but you're there if they want to tap your 20 years of experience or whatever the case may be. So I think those are the keys of pillars of employee experience.
So how do you think we can, develop a new kind of a strategy around that? Is there like a specific structure we should follow, or is there specific things that we need to keep in mind?
I think the most important thing to keep in mind, especially for leaders and managers, is that they have to become very comfortable with serving those they lead. And a lot of leaders and managers just don't understand that. So that's why I tell them, look, start by reading my book and then we'll go from there, because it's just loaded with all these, examples of do this, not that, say this, not that, very practical. And also to get very comfortable with showing appreciation. There are some people that say, oh, I don't need thanks. That's fake. There are some pessimists in the world, and if one of your employees doesn't want to hear thank you, that's fine. But most people want to know. I think serving and showing appreciation and recognition, being the leaders who are also removing the obstacles that a leader can remove because they have access to other leaders in the organization. In other words, doing everything you can to clear the way for your employees' success at whatever the goal is, delivers these great experiences. Stop thinking that, if we give them all of this help, they become weak. If we show them empathy, that makes you weak. It does not make you weak. When someone is dealing with a big crisis, especially COVID, or just in their own personal life, and you show them some empathy, you share with them, the times you've been through it, all these different pieces. Empathy, of course, is about them, not you. But, once you get into that mode of really serving and using your people skills to buoy them, who isn't going to like that? I mean, who doesn't want to be supported? Who doesn't? It's so intuitive for me. And over the years, I've had to learn how to give concrete examples to people who it's not intuitive to them.
Completely agree with you. You're right.
But I mean, you go find me, the majority of employees want cold-hearted, insulting leaders who crave and keep power to themselves. You find me that, and then maybe I'll change my mind. But
I completely agree with you. Also, when we talk about experiences, we all want to feel like we are a part of it, something. We're not just, given like a daily task. You do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you end your day. You just want to involve and get yourself around everything else. I think that is also one of the most important things, that being from the employees part of side, I think that is also very important. Let's go in with our next question. Are there any other sound bites you would like to leave our audience with?
Well, I would say a few things. First of all, if you have the opportunity, even before a crisis or after a crisis before the next one, to look at your culture and see your workplace culture, whatever you call it, company culture, and see what you can do to make employees more tooled, more ready, and happier to work there. In other words, to create this, do it. I wonder, the one question I've been having is, because COVID is going on for so long, I'm hoping that companies are already starting, as it's going on, to evaluate how well they're doing in terms of employee experience. Because generally we think of evaluation as, okay, we have this crisis in our company, something happens, maybe there's a virus, a technical virus, computer virus that happens, or something major happens, or maybe some product emergency, and it hits the news, whatever. And then after that, you do an after action review, right? But I think that we have to remember that employee experience and morale are not events that you evaluate like a single emergency. It's life. It's going on all the time. So to really have employees are saying, yeah, this is a great employee experience. Here's what I think you need to do. You need to ask them what they expect and what they would like in an employee experience. What is it when they come to work, when they're working, what are the key factors for them? And then listen without filtering it based on what your predetermined idea of what it should be. It's difficult for leaders. They've got a lot of stress on them. A lot of them have to help meet the business goals as well as lead the people from an emotional perspective. But when it comes to listening, if you walk in with a predetermined idea, okay, our company wants the employee experience to be this, then you ask them, the employees, what they want. You're not going to hear it. You're not really going to hear it because you're already going to be going down your checklist. Oh, did we hit that one? Oh, there's one. Oh, we got another one, and that's not the way to do it. So ask your employees, what is it that they value beside the paycheck, right? Because paychecks do not create good morale. They do not. That's expected. They're working, they expect a paycheck. But morale and employee experience is all about what their expectations are of life and what they want throughout the day. I mean, people spend most of their time working. I mean, and sleeping, right? The second thing is then involve them in helping to craft these changes, because people also like to feel that they have control over their own life. They don't want to feel like puppets being manipulated in that way.
So true. Yes.
And then be fluid. People change, companies change, it all, time goes on. And so if you think that companies that are super hyper focused on metrics, metrics don't create great customer service. They measure the customer service that you create. And metrics do not create an employee experience. Yes, they can measure it, and you have to have some measurements. But if you live to measure everything, you're not going to be delivering a great experience. You have to understand that being flexible and being fluid and letting things happen and within the framework of what your company is about. And companies have different cultures. The high-tech companies, the big ones like Google and all these places, they were almost not forced, but they came to embrace employee experience and empowerment very early on, because their entire existence was based on these, brainiacs, as we call them, who were creating all of it. So they couldn't have any of the traditional structures. It would not have worked. And I always make that reference point because there's no reason why you can't take the lessons of empowerment and employee experience from those companies and see where it can apply to your company, whether you're making maybe you make telephones or, whatever you're doing, it's similar clothes. It doesn't matter, but involve them. So ask them, listen, and involve them. And the good part for leaders, some leaders are afraid, but eventually, what am I going to do? They say, they feel if they share power and they're involving all these employees, will my job disappear? And I said, your job will evolve. I said, you've got to trust your own talents. You have to trust that you are just as talented as the employees that you are mentoring, and that whether the nature of your leadership job changes or you end up working in a different part of the company. I've been through so many career changes in my life, and it was scary, but I wouldn't be doing what I love, which is all of this, for the last more than 25 years, if I hadn't trusted that it was a good thing to try to grow and to change. So when you feel like that, you're more likely to lead your employees better, than if you're trying to hold on to your job and let's measure everything and being so nitty. That will never deliver a positive experience, just never.
I think you're right. I think you've covered up almost everything, and the small things that we as employees we try to miss out, and these small nuances. I think this was an amazing interview, Kate. Thank you so much for giving us your time. You're
I
in
am
profession.
thrilled. I am so thrilled because, when we get a chance to talk about it, believe it or not, every time I give an interview or whatever, have a discussion like this, I learn things too, because it's other people are reacting to what I say or they're posing questions. So I practice what I preach. And I say, look, remember that above all, you must lead your employees and you must lead morale, because if you're not leading morale, you're not leading anybody.
So true.
So, seriously, and morale is not an event. It is not, let's bring in donuts on Friday morning. That's not morale. It's not one employee appreciation day a year where we put up balloons and things. It's that daily caring, that daily focus, support them, buoy them, ask their opinions. I can't think of a single person who wouldn't want that.
So true. Yes. I completely agree with you. Our audience is going to enjoy this interview as much as I've done.
Well, I hope that they will tap into my blog. I write at least one blog post a week. It's on katenasser.com. I have a YouTube channel where I put a lot of short extra videos. Like I'll just sit here and I will film like a 1 or 2 minute video. So it's out on my YouTube channel. I have my book, of course, Leading Morale, which you can get at Amazon.com. And I'm very interactive. If people want to ask me questions, ask me. I will help you.
I would kindly request you to just send over the blog links and all of the links so that we can promote all of that. And of course, we need everyone to see and know what things are. And that's very important, I think. So
Sure will.
it would be amazing if you could just send across all the information and
I'll send
we
an
can
email.
promote it. Yes.
Okay.
We'll be back again with a new episode and a brand new expert soon. So stay tuned and we'll see around you for the next one.